Welcome to r/slash Offmychest, where OP's dad sleeps with OP's best friend. Our next Reddit post is from Laura Lou. I'm writing this from my home in British Columbia. My entire world has been flipped upside down less than a week ago, and it's still incredibly raw. I'm almost 8 months sober, and honestly, this whole mess has been the toughest test of my life. I just need to get this whole crazy story out. Brenda, who's 35, was my first friend ever, like family for over 30 years. She was basically an adopted daughter to my parents. My dad, who's 61, loves music, and Brenda's a great singer, so they always had this strong musical connection. I really valued that. But over the years, I started feeling uncomfortable with how close they seemed. I remember telling Brenda way before this trip that I felt jealous. Not because I thought anything romantic was going on, but because I felt like I was being replaced as a daughter. I realized then that my own relationship with my parents wasn't as close as I wanted, and I understood that it was my job to fix that. So I never asked Brenda to back off. I figured it would be selfish, especially since her own parents weren't great, and she always said how much she appreciated my folks as figures in her life. I was really clear about that with her. It wasn't until I went to Ontario recently that things clicked. That's when I first told her that their joking back and forth looked and felt like flirting to me, and it made me really uncomfortable. Before that, I honestly never suspected anything romantic because I thought of her like a sister and my dad as her father figure. But oh, how wrong I was. During that trip, Brenda dropped bombshells. She told me she'd been in love with my dad for over 4 years. For 4 years, my best friend was secretly wanting my father, my mother's husband, and denying everything to me. She told me my dad made her feel good, even better than me. She said that if he wasn't my dad, they'd be riding off into the sunset together. When I tried to tell her how much this hurt, she just hit me with emotional blackmail. Your parents are my only friends. I have no one else. Music is my only outlet. What am I supposed to do? She basically made me feel guilty for existing, for even thinking about asking her to keep her distance from my own dad. Then, less than a week ago, it all exploded. My mom saw Brenda rubbing my dad's foot. My mom, who has her own deep-seated trauma and issues, finally realized what was happening. My dad called me shortly after and told me that he had left her. I was furious. I called Brenda, and I'll admit I was yelling. It only lasted about 30 seconds. She just denied everything, saying nothing happened and I never touched him. Shortly after, Brenda's husband, Randall, reached out to me. He's also devastated. He told me that Brenda herself admitted to him that she and my dad are in love. And that's not all. She also told him that I'm crazy and that I'm in love with my father incestually. Huh? It's deplorable, disgusting, and I can't believe she would say something so vile about me, even to her own husband. Randall just told me what she said. He wasn't trying to cause trouble. I immediately called my dad to tell him about Brenda's disgusting accusation. He basically just said, "That's horrible she would say something like that," but then dismissed Randall, saying he was probably just trying to say horrible things and stuff about her. He didn't stand up for me at all. I then reiterated to my dad that if he chooses to be with Brenda, then I cannot be his wife. I told him he'd be losing me, my sister, his grandkids, and other family and friends. He just said he needed to disappear for a few days and wouldn't tell me where he was going, or confirm that Brenda wouldn't be there. I'm absolutely devastated. I found out this morning that he's been still seeing her and was at her mom's house with her last night. I understand that my parents' marriage was deeply troubled and likely going to end anyway. My mom's lifelong struggles with trauma and her isolating habits created many issues. My dad, being an outgoing person, often felt lonely. I see both their parts in why their marriage ended. But this doesn't make Brenda innocent. She knew their vulnerabilities. She knew that I was her best friend, like a sister. She knew she was acting as an adopted daughter, yet for 4 years she chose to pursue an inappropriate emotional and now confirmed romantic relationship with my dad, lie to me, manipulate me, and directly cause my parents painful public separation. She should have backed off immediately when she developed these feelings. Instead, she stayed, lied, and destroyed everything. And now she's spreading vile, false accusations about me to discredit me. I'm grieving so much right now. The shattering of a 30-year friendship, the end of my parents' marriage, the profound betrayal and lack of defense from my dad, and the realization of how truly manipulative someone I loved could be. My sobriety is solid, thankfully, but this has been the most excruciating time of my life. I just needed to share this story. This may sound like I'm defending Brenda, and I'm definitely not here. I'm trying to explain what I think is going on. I don't think Brenda was spreading lies in order to discredit or put OP in a bad light. I think what's actually going on here is that Brenda has some sort of weird brain issue where she sees father figures in a romantic light, and she's projecting that onto OP and assuming that OP also has a thing for fathers. The reason why I say that is it's just so out of left field. Why would you even, of all the weird rumors to invent about someone, why would you invent that? And I think it's honestly just projection. A lot of times an accusation is actually a confession. Either way, OP's dad and Brenda are disgusting. I can't tell what's worse, destroying your best friend's family or leaving your family to get with a girl who's the same age as your daughter. Our next Reddit post is from Fancy Carrot. I grew up in an extreme Muslim household. I was forced to wear the hijab at 5 and the niqab/burqa at 11. I was driven to and from school every day and not allowed to socialize with anyone outside my immediate family and the attendees at my local mosque. At 18, I finished school, and from then on, my life became hell. As a child, I was still allowed to socialize with classmates and allowed to attend chaperoned events with the girls at the mosque. But when I became an adult, I was told that my focus would be to get married and that I wouldn't be allowed to leave the house without an official reason. For the next 2 months, I didn't leave the house at all, as my brothers and father didn't see a reason for me to. I began to feel suffocated and started evaluating my options for leaving. I had no money, but I had amazing grades. An idea formed in my mind, and in the dead of night, I would sneak downstairs and research universities on the family computer. I was able to send in my applications, and it seemed to be going well, until my older brother found out. I had forgotten to delete a tab and was immediately confronted. I played dumb, but it was too late. My father was infuriated, and on a November evening in 2016, he, my uncle, and my brothers beat me and strangled me within an inch of my life for going against their orders. My memories are clouded, but I believe that they thought I was dead when they left me in a pile of my own blood. I wasn't dead, however. I had suffered some serious head trauma, but I was still alive. I was playing dead, and in their craze, they hadn't bothered to check my pulse. Once they believed that they had killed me, they began to discuss what to do with my body. My uncle suggested they bury me in the back garden, and the men went outside to dig up my grave. I was in pain and could barely see from my swollen eyes. I knew I had to escape, otherwise I'd be buried alive. I managed to escape to a local shop where the employees immediately called the police. I was taken into police custody and given an alternate identity. A week after the attempt on my life, I found out that I was accepted into university to be a doctor. In an unexpected turn of events, my mother testified against my father, but not my uncle and brothers. They walked free, while my father was given a life sentence. It's been almost a decade now. I live a new life under a different name with my husband, whom I met in university, and our 2-year-old daughter. He knows about my past and has always been nothing but supportive. His family is very loving and treats me like their own daughter. I am a doctor and homeowner. My life is wonderful now, and I often get comments that I'm living the dream life. But nobody knows about the torture I've experienced apart from my therapist and husband. I haven't seen any of my family since that fateful night. I didn't even attend the court case. As far as I'm concerned, I have no family and say as much to the people that I meet. But nobody knows that I occasionally visit the social medias of my brothers and mother. I see their wives and children, and my mother featured in many of the pictures. I feel sad that I'm not a part of them and mourn the loss of my family, even after everything they did. I don't know what's wrong with me. They tried to kill me, and yet I miss them so much. I could never tell my therapist or husband about this, as I'm deeply ashamed that I still care after everything they did to me, so I'm venting to Reddit. I may be a different person now, but deep down, I'm still a person who misses her mommy and longs for a family she never had. I think about reaching out all the time, but I never do. Instead, I secretly sob about missing my family and live every day knowing that, besides my husband, I'm completely alone in the world. I would say probably the best thing to do in this situation is to try to funnel all those feelings into your daughter and be the parent that your parents never were. Our next Reddit post is from Karsegi. I'm a dude who was born with a really high voice, and even after the puberty, the voice was still high. Despite my family and friends' insistence, I've been mistaken as a woman over the phone for 2 decades, and it eroded my confidence quite a bit. Something I never really shared with others because they would immediately deny that there's something wrong with my voice. After talking to an otolaryngologist, I found out that I have puberphonia, a voice disorder where the larynx fails to descend during a male puberty. I also got a lowball energy, which might have contributed to it. I decided to go to Turkey partly on a whim despite my family's protest to do a voice surgery. The doctor changed some thyroid cartilages around my voice box, and my voice that was over 130 Hz is now way down at 86 Hz. So for context, this is what 130 Hz sounds like. And this is what 86 Hz sounds like. The post-op pain was unearthly, but it's been 2.5 weeks, and it's healing well. I never thought I'd do any type of plastic surgery, but I have no regrets. That's neat. I didn't even know it was possible to go to surgery to get your voice changed. Our next Reddit post is from Bella Bell. My in-laws have always leaned heavily on being half Italian. They've used it to dictate their love for certain foods, their tendency towards a particularly round body type, their personality, whatever that means, and their jokes and slurs towards each other. My husband did a DNA test last year and found out that his Italian grandparents are actually a mix of different European groups, including German and Spanish, but virtually no Italian. 0.7%, I believe. We thought that it was hilarious that they've been wrong this whole time and had a fun conversation with his grandparents, who grew up with prejudice against the Portuguese while apparently being 8% Portuguese. Still, he didn't want to break the news to the rest of his family yet. While eating at an Italian restaurant recently, the comment was made that they're obsessed with the place because it's just in their blood. I rolled my eyes a bit. Then my sister-in-law called my brother-in-law a greasy slur for Italian. And I turned to my husband and asked if he had gotten around to telling them the truth yet. He chuckled nervously and told me that I could break the news. My brother-in-law laughed, while my sister-in-law looked at me like I spit in her mouth. My husband started explaining the rest of his results while she sat there in disbelief. Her friend piped up and said, "Well, you never know, just because you might not have been Italian, but that doesn't mean that she isn't. There's a lot of variation between siblings." Me, a biologist, had to explain that there may be some variation, but certainly not that much. Later on, my brother-in-law dropped another Italian slur in a joke, and I joked back with, "Remember, you can't say that anymore, you'll get canceled." My sister-in-law responded, "I don't care what the test says. Our family will always be Italian." My husband, the hero, replied, "It's all right, she's trans-Italian." We all cackled. My sister-in-law was not amused. Nowadays, is there even such a thing as 100% pure-blooded any country in Europe, 100% German, 100% Spanish, 100% Italian? Maybe if you live in some ultra-small village that's in the secluded mountains and you guys still don't have electricity, then maybe you'd be 100%. Our next Reddit post is from Different Row. My dad, who's 67, died last week. He was abusive. Not in the tough love way, abusive. Screamed, hit, belittled, controlled. My siblings and I spent our whole childhood walking on eggshells. But he was charming to everyone else. Neighbors, church folk, coworkers, they all thought that he was strict but loving. They didn't see the belt. They didn't hear the things that he said to my mom when no one was around. At his funeral, person after person stood up and called him a pillar, a gentle man, a hero. And I snapped. I stood up and said, he wasn't a good father, he was cruel, and some of us are relieved he's gone. The room went silent. My mom didn't look at me. My older brother walked out. I don't regret saying it, but I feel torn. He was still my father, a complicated man who had moments of humanity. But for people to rewrite him like he was a loving dad, I couldn't sit quietly through that. I don't know what kind of person that makes me, but at least I told the truth. Down in the comments, we have this story from John G. Knight. I worked in the funeral business, and I've seen this happen. After a few people got up and gave all the usual platitudes, his 2 daughters got up. They told us how it really was, and how they'd been sexually abused, finishing with, "Glad he's dead," and walked out. That was rSlash Off My Chest, and if you like this content, check out my podcast where I publish the exact same episodes. Also, hit that subscribe button because I put out new Reddit episodes every single day.